And hit OK.
Okay, I'm Amanda Gillen. I am located right now in Whitestown, Indiana, and I have David Gillen with me, and today is July 9th, 2026. So, David, can you tell us when and where were you born?
Well, first of all, hi everybody. I'm Dave Gillen, and I'm located in 5 miles west of Monmouth today in Hale Township, doing an interview with my daughter Amanda. Um, I was born in Monmouth, Illinois, on March 20th, 1952.
And what were your parents' names?
My parents were Roy Gillen, and my mother was Helen Hennepin. And Roy was from a family of 10 near the Monmouth area, and my mother, Helen, was born in Macomb, Illinois, and she had uh, another sister and two brothers, and they lived south or northwest of Roseville, Illinois, a community about 15 miles south of Monmouth.
And then how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I had, there was four of us, myself, Dave, and then my next brother was Raymond, and I had another brother, Dick, and then I had a sister, Cindy, and she was quite a character, but she's a good one, so we'll claim her.
Yes, you will claim her.
Yeah, I will.
Can you tell us a memory you have about your father from when you were a child?
Well, there's several things I remember about my father. Back then, we had quite a bit of livestock, and he had some very early morning chores. And I can remember as a real young fella waking up in my um, toddler crib, I guess you would call it, and he would always have the Orion Samuelson morning show on at 5 a.m. and he'd be downstairs fixing himself bacon and eggs. Sometimes mom was up with him, and they'd have breakfast, and all we heard was Orion Samuelson, and I remembered that voice my whole life until Orion passed away here a couple years ago. He was quite a radio personality, but soothing to listen to him. My dad enjoyed him to no end, catching the cattle in the hog markets every morning, listening to the grain markets, and that went on summer, fall, winter, and spring. But kind of interesting in the winter when it was still so dark, and he'd be listening to radio down there.
That's a great memory. And then what about your mom? Do you have a memory of her when you were a child?
I got quite a few memories of my mom. My mom who's still alive at 95 and in fairly good health. She'd try about anything. She was real spry and energetic, and I see your cat coming in there, Amanda.
Yep, he might join this.
Your pet. She would try about anything, and mom was kept us boys outside. There, of course, three boys, and we weren't the most well-behaved boys for her, but we had a lot of fun growing up and a lot of mischief. But she'd try riding a mini bike, or we had pet goats around the yard, or she'd hop on them. She'd do about anything. She'd always take us for walks down here in the timber behind where I presently live now. And as young kids, we'd go on walks and we'd have hot dog picnics and a little campfire quite often in our days growing up and play in the creek and just enjoyed the outdoors and the wildlife with her. And if we were real good, we'd get to go into Monmouth Park and slide down the taller slipper slide, and that was kind of a highlight.
That's great. Sounds like my growing up, kind of. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, speaking of growing up, what's your earliest memory that you have?
my earliest memory, of course, back then at that age, I enjoyed the animals and the livestock, and I remember the first thing I remember pretty well is I had baby ducks, and I think it was my mom and dad and my grandfather Hennepin bought me a few baby ducks, and I had little fuzzy yellow ducks, and they just follow me all around the yard, and I play in the sandbox and move dirt. and play farming, and I had those little ducks, and I remembered them. And my grandfather Hennepin, a few years later, when I was a little bit older and take care of stuff, we always got a new baby goat or two, my brothers and I, for Easter from Grandma and Grandpa Hennepin. And my grandpa Gillen always had, horses and back in those days and other livestock. And we didn't lack any for kind of having a family zoo in the yard. It was a lot of fun.
You've kind of alluded to it, but what did your father do to earn his living?
Well, my dad farmed pretty much all his life, but he said shortly after high school, he claims he dropped out at eighth grade, but I think he graduated from Monmouth High School. He worked for a relative of his, T.W. Gavin, as a hired hand and took care of a lot of livestock, especially cattle. And I think that's where he got his love for cattle. And I continued on with me. Used to feed a lot of cattle up until my later years and enjoyed it very much. Enjoyed especially when I was younger, I was a full-time, or not a full-time, but I was a commercial pilot. And we'd fly out to Nebraska in the fall two or three times and buy a few hundred head of so-called feeder cattle and bring them back and feed them all winter. And that was a highlight, I think, of my dad's life was getting to go to Nebraska, whether it was via train or his son flying him out in an airplane and going to the auctions and buying cattle and hauling them back.
I think all of your dad's grandchildren, so myself and my cousins will always remember his big, I think he had a cow or a steer or something on his desk in his
Yes,
office. Yes.
and that is still around. One of the grandkids got that as a memento, and it's still in the family. Yep.
Yeah. So where was your family farm located? Where did your dad farm?
Family farm was located in Hale Township, which is west of Monmouth, Illinois, or south of New York, Illinois, about 5 miles. Well, we're five or 6 miles south of New York and 5 or 6 miles west of Monmouth. So that's where this family kind of came. I think, if memory serves me right, the family came from parts of Ohio. I think they came over from Ireland and was there a short time, and then some of them moved back here to the Illinois area in the 1850s or 60s. I knew my grandfather, E.T. Gillen, Ed Gillen, and Kate Gavin, and I'll allude to their families a little bit later here. But so everyone, they all farmed, and that's where they started in this area. In fact, my father, Roy Gillen, was, and I think his brother Bill, there was 10 in their family, was born just a half a mile west of my current house. And I've lived in this area right here within 200 yards of the home place and where I'm at now my whole life, except while I was in college from 70 to 74. And
Wow.
that was 1970.
So they came to Illinois, you said 1850 or 1860s. Do you know why they decided to come here?
Well, if I get into some of my other relatives, they all came over as former potato farmers in Ireland, and the famine hit over there, and they claimed people were starving and there just wasn't enough to eat. And I think there was a disease that got on the potatoes and it just wasn't working out. So some of the brave ones um, took off for America, and they came over 1840s, 1850s as potato farmers. As I said, some settled in Virginia, Ohio, some stayed in Ohio a little while, and then there was a few bunches that were related came to Western Illinois, and that was the Gillens. And the Gavins were probably here just a few years earlier. And then there was Thompson's in the area too. And if I can tell this short story, when my father was growing up, his mother married E.T. Gillen, and her name was Kate. Kate's brother lived a half a mile um, straight east, and that was the George Gavin, and that was her brother. And then there was the Thompsons across the road. L.R. Thompson married Rose Gavin. Rose Gavin, Kate Gavin, and George Gavin were brother and sister, and they had 10. Each of them had 10 kids. So there was 30 first cousins living within a half a mile of each other. So consequently, in this county, there's an awful lot of people related to an awful lot of other people. In fact, we're getting together September 9th and having a large Gavin family reunion this year. And that'll be something I'm interested in seeing and wanting to go to pretty bad. But so yeah, there was 30 first cousins within a half a mile, and they all went to the same church, Immaculate Conception Church. So,
Wow. So, of all those descendants, you mentioned the Gavin family reunion. Can you tell us what other last names would all fall into that Gavin family reunion? Because I know the last one I went to was pretty large. Lots of different families, lots of different last names that go to it.
oh gosh,
Right.
there was we had a lot of boys in there. Gavin's, let's see, there was B Gavin, B Bride was married to Donald Gavin. Uh, Mary
Yeah.
and Jean Gavin got married late in life. Richard Hobson and Bob Smith were their husbands, and they were married rather late in life. The Gillens, let's see, was married to Sullivans over south of Galesburg and in the Galesburg, Illinois area. My Aunt Mary,
Gillens, Gavins, Sullivans.
Sullivans,
Is there
Thompsons,
Thompsons or Elliots in there? Or
Elliott's, yes. My Aunt Frank, she was my dad's sister. She and my dad were quite close as they bickered a lot growing up. And they lived close to us. And of course, we played growing up with Aunt Frances's kids, his family. So we had a lot of family to play with. But she married Ralph Elliott, and they lived out near us. And then they acquired a farm out in Lenox Township, which is just southeast corner of Monmouth. And they ended up in their later grades or yeah, high school area, just at an opposing school. So that made basketball and football and track in high school was so interesting because it would be some cousins playing on the same team and then other cousins would be on opposite teams. So there was rivalries, but everybody knew everybody. So it was a fun time growing up on the farm here as a kid in the local area.
yeah, those grandparents
I'm
didn't have to go to a
I'm
bunch of different games to see all their
I'm sure
grandkids play.
sure I forgot names, but
Yeah.
there's just so many of them to keep straight. If you give me a paper and pen, I could probably draw you a pretty good tree, but family tree.
There was a while at church I would go and I'd meet a new cousin, it seemed like every week. So there's
Yeah,
a lot of us. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
So speaking of schooling, I know you went to a couple different schools throughout your elementary school age. So where did you start your school journey? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was. I was in several schools, but all local schools right here due to closings, consolidations, or the system change. And I'm of one of the last of the kids that went to a one-room schoolhouse. They didn't have kindergarten back then. They were just talking about it. So I went to first and second grade to Barr School, which was in Hale Township, and it was the closest one to me and one of the last ones to be open. And we had anywhere from 6 to 12 kids in the school those 2 years, and that was in the whole school. And there was a Mrs. White was a teacher from Monmouth, and then a Lesher. who was related somehow to the family. And don't ask me on that one. That goes through, I think, some of the Gavins and Lashers and something. And yeah, Dorothy Lasher was a teacher. So I had those two as a teacher. Then I went to Kirkwood for third and fourth grade, a regular public school. And in fifth grade, the priests implemented coming out to the country and picking up the kids or the parents taking them in to go to Immaculate Conception School, Catholic school locally in Monmouth. So I completed grade school there at that school, fifth through eighth grade, and that was an experience being with town kids. I'd never, it was just a different life, and I adapted quite well. I was shy when I got there, but they brought me out of my shell, and I got into sports and just had a great time. Had nuns. I'm one of the kids that had nuns, and I got along well with them. They were good. Everybody thought they were strict, but they were strict in the right way. I'll put it that way. So I enjoyed it, and then I came back out to Yorkwood, which is a consolidation of the town of Louis York, 6 miles north of me, and the town of Kirkwood, 6 miles south of me. And to consolidate, they bought, I think, 40 acres up here of my grandfather's farm and built the school in the middle, so everybody was happy. And it's kind of ironic. I was the first graduating class in 1970 as a senior. And you, as my daughter Amanda, was in the last graduating class
Mm-hmm.
before the school uh, no longer was Yorkwood and was a part of United School, and that was the end of Yorkwood
Yep, in
in
2007.
2007. Okay, thanks for refreshing my memory. So that's had quite a history. It still seems like a new school to me, even though I graduated in 70, and you've graduated, and it's been a few years since you graduated. So time marches on is about all I can say, but it was a great life. I'm
Yeah.
sure you enjoyed your life there as sports and activities you could do. And, everybody got to participate without being in a school with 1,900 kids in your class.
Yes,
Did you just
definitely.
have 19 in your graduating
I
class?
had 23 in my class.
23. And when
Mm-hmm.
I graduated, I think I had in the upper 40s. So, as a community here, the population is shrinking and the farms are enlarging. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's fewer people. So, that required the consolidation. So,
Yeah. One more question about school. What was your favorite subject in school?
um, well, I kind of lean towards the science stuff. I liked the physics was one of my favorite, and stuff like that in the science. I wasn't a big biology fan. I mean, I could do it, but that and then math. I like math. Math was no issue for me. But I think I got that help from the farm because my dad was very good at math, and he taught me how to figure, fertilizers and chemical and shares and pounds of gain on livestock and stuff. So the math came pretty easy to me also, but I really enjoyed the physics. That was something I understood, levers and ratios and stuff that I really enjoyed. Mechanical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
then,
then
yeah, go ahead.
I did go to college, I better say that.
Yep,
And I
same.
went to Illinois State University in Bloomington Normal from 70 and graduated in 74, comprehensive ag. And I can't remember if I had a minor in industrial arts, but anyway, along the mechanical end of it too. I took a lot of courses in that.
Yep. So then graduated, and where did you meet your wife? What's her name?
My wife is Janine, and her maiden name was Hoddle, and she was from a local family here. Her father, Buff the second, I think it was, Bufford. Uh, and married Vivian Sugart from north of New York. But he was a local lawyer and city attorney for a while and a judge around the area. And he flew, and I forgot to mention that I flew also. I was a pilot and supplemented my income by being a pilot, which we'll go into a little bit later. But so I was at a flying club meeting. I was flying off a local farm strip as an agricultural pilot, spraying, and we had the flying club meeting. So it was a friend of ours, lake here. He had an airstrip in the lake where we operated our business from, and so we had the flying club annual picnic out at the lake there, and so I went to it, and I don't know if her dad had it set up or something, but anyway, I met Janine at the flying club picnic. And she was talking with the ladies, and she met my mother, who said uh, to the ladies, because I had red hair at the time, and I was the only redhead in the family, that she told the nurses when her first child was born, if it has red hair, throw it down the well and drown it. Because they teased her about having a reddish cast to her hair when she was growing up. But so that's how Janine met her future mother-in-law, not knowing it. And I met her, so I kind of stumbled around as a farm kid and kicked the dirt. And I thought she was a foreign exchange student first because she was one of the girls that liked to have a uh, dark tan and tanned all the time in the summer when she wasn't in college. So anyway, we went out, and she oftentimes told me she didn't know if I was going to get a second date or not, but thank goodness the good Lord allowed us to have a second one, and it worked out, and we were married in 1978.
Yeah, that worked out for me as
Yeah,
well.
that worked out pretty good for you
Yeah,
and your brothers. Yes.
yeah. Before I ask about kind of your career, what did your wife work outside of the home and what did she do?
Yes. Uh, Janine was a teacher, and she taught the younger grades, and then she also was a major, got a master's in teaching special education, and the reason of that is Janine's had a sister called Jane, who we dearly loved, but she was a special needs child. She had the Down syndrome, and we all just loved her to no end. And she was a pool shark, an artist, and you kids just had a great time with her. And we always had her out here on Sundays, either every other Sunday or in later years when it was worked out. We had her out here every Sunday because she loved to get out and she loved to go to a restaurant. But Jane led a very, very happy life. And about 2 years ago, Jane passed away. And I think she was in her early 60s and had a great life. So, anyway, that's how that deal went. And that's why Janine had the interest in special education, and she was a gifted teacher with that. So she taught for, I think, 25 years or so, and retired from that in about 2013.
Yes.
So
And I guess we should mention that she was a part-time art teacher while she was raising us when we were little kids as well,
yes, yeah,
too.
yeah, I
Yeah.
neglected that, I guess, but yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about my mom's dad, my grandpa being a lawyer. Do you know what his wife did, my grandma Vivian?
Oh, Grandma Vivian, yes. Uh, she always teased me quite a bit, but she was a what do you call her? Court
Illegal. Yeah,
legal secretary.
photographer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she assisted your grandfather at times, and they went. They your dad got his degree at University of Illinois, and they were married around that time, and then he ended up moving back to the Monmouth areas where he started working Of course, your mother or grandmother was about 20 miles northwest of where we currently live in some smaller towns up that way, not too far from the Mississippi River. And let's see, where was I going with this? And consequently, he got you interested in being a lawyer. So I'm going to
Mhm.
tell everyone that you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
So she works for KPMG and does a tremendous amount of accounting and advising, law advising work for the accounting company she works for.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and say that then boy number one, Brandon, works for Corteva Pioneer. He's in a started out as agronomist and has been promoted up to their technology guy for quite a bit of the United States and parts of Canada, and does the drones and the GPS and the technology and digitalizing stuff, if I got it right. And then young Tyler is number two and the middle boy, and he was an aeronautical engineer, and he works for Rolls-Royce jet engines, and he is the short version would be designs and looks at the insides of their jet engines to try to make them more efficient and designs the blades and so forth. So all the kids have done quite well, and they all live in the northwest corner of Indianapolis in the suburbs of Whitestown and Zionsville. So I'm, as family, Janine and I are very proud of every one of them.
Well, thank you. But this is
Yes.
your interview, so why don't you tell us about what your career was? What did you do to make a living?
What I did to make a living. Well, as soon as I got out of college, well, even before I started farming, and Dad gave me some ground to rent from him, and I started in crop sharing on crops, and started that. And along the way, I always had a strong interest in aviation, and I think I had my license, private license at 16, and when I was in college, I did lessons out at the airport there at Bloomington, and got my commercial ticket, and then I just kept right on going and got my instrument ticket. I was very fortunate in having a local commercial pilot, Jim Carner, who flew for American Airlines 727s and DC-10s for him until his retirement. He took me under his wing, and I had one of the greatest educations on the flying aspect of it, knowledgeable. He was a civilian instructor for the military during the Korean War, and also uh, instructed, I believe, some at the very end of World War II, and did a lot of it in, let's see, Missouri and Arkansas. There was some air bases, and he did a training as a civilian pilot. He was good, and he started out crop dusting and farming was my first love, and aviation was right there with it. And I combined the farming and the aviation and got into the I call it agricultural pilot deal in company with Jim, and then in later years his son Paul and I. So I was involved with flying and working in the ag aviation business for 45 years as a pilot and part owner and so forth. And then uh, I had a fantastic career, flew a lot of um, trips for some of the local businesses who would fly their planes and stuff for them as a pilot. But and then in 2013, I had the unfortunate deal of having to have bypass surgery, and that ended my career. About it. The ag career, I wanted to fly one more year, and then I was going to retire because it's enjoyable work, but it was a lot of work, and it was time to let some of the younger guys move in. But therefore, I can't fly, but I'm very fortunate. I got two boys that are pilots, and you, I know, can land a plane and take a plane off, even though you're shaking your head no. So, fly it around. So I'm proud of that. I had a great career. The main thing is I feel fantastic. I recovered from all my heart issues and and feel healthy. And you find out in life that your health's the most important thing is while you're on this earth that you feel good.
Yes, that's very true.
Yes.
Well, yes, you haven't retired though from your main career, which is farming. So,
Yes, and my wife and my daughter seem to want to push me
and your
into retirement,
sons, and your sons.
and maybe one or two of the boys. Anyway,
Hmm.
I've cut back, and I know the time's getting near, and that's about all I'll say. That I enjoy it too much. I've cut back to where it's pretty easy to handle, and we'll see. I know the time is coming, but
Well, how old were you, do you think, when you first learned how to drive a tractor?
when I drive a tractor,
Yeah.
to tell you honest truth, I don't remember learning. We had the guys that are familiar. My dad had a little Ford 8N, and I must have been about, I don't know if I was 3.5 or 4, and it was a little tractor, and I used to ride on his lap and got on to what he was doing, and I soon learned I could sit on the seat, but I couldn't reach the pedals, but I knew what levers to put it in gear, and I knew where the key was. And conveniently, this little tractor had a push button starter that you stepped on the tunnel in front of the seat. So I put it in the gear I want, turned the key on, and pressed the starter. And it'd just take off and go. And I used to drive around the barnyard. I couldn't have been much more than 3.5 or 4. But yeah, I was pretty young, and I always had the ability to run equipment, and I'd have to say I was a pretty fair mechanic and keep everything running, and I enjoyed the mechanical work too. I and so forth. So
Yeah. I think
I
it's safe to say you've been farming your whole life.
probably I
Yes.
know my cousins and I who are still farming. We all played in the same sandbox when we were little, farming in the
Yeah.
sandbox. Yep.
Oh man. So how would you describe how has farming changed from when you first started out with your own farm? And I know you farmed with your dad and your brothers and your sister's family, but how has the farming business kind of changed from then to now?
Well, I didn't get in on the horse era, but it had kind of just ended. But when I first started, there was still the putt John Deere tractors were quite familiar. And of course, they had no cab, they had no GPS guidance. Some of them didn't even have hydraulics. And you sat out in the cold and you sat out in the heat. And then the planters were either 2 row or 4 row. Um, And I enjoyed following the equipment up, and I enjoy so much the technology nowadays, the GPS, and I enjoy setting the tractor up to work. And I'm in it, but the thing drives down the row itself. It'll turn on the sprayer on and off. It'll keep the rate consistent. It shuts itself off on the ends and makes the turns. And I'm sitting in there monitoring it, and it just took the stress and the hard work out of it. And now we're in air conditioned cabs, but all that technology takes knowledge and you got to keep up with it. But I had a jump on most farmers because of flying the aircraft, the GPS or the so-called swathing that told you where to drive. I'd been using that for probably 7 years before they even started adapting it to tractors and machinery and cars and everything like they are today. So I picked up on that, and I enjoy setting the equipment up to operate it that way. And that's taken an awful lot of stress. It saves you money on overplanting because it'll shut the planter on and off when it needs to be. And it's just better for the environment. You use less fuel, you're doing it the most efficient way, and you're saving money. And as everybody knows right now, the farm economy, you need to save every dollar you can. So that was a big help, and big change. I remember running the 2-row corn pickers, and now I'm running two 8-row combines, and they shell the corn, and it's ready to go to town or go in the storage bin. Before it was the ear corn, and then in the winter you shelled it. So the work, the work is probably easier work, but you can make it as hard and long days as you want. So I'm in the stage of making my days shorter.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
And I enjoy my work. And if you enjoy it, it's not really too hard to work.
I think I just have a couple more questions before we wrap this up. But did your family attend any local churches?
Yeah, yeah, we did. As I said before, Immaculate Conception Church here in Monmouth was a big part of my life growing up. I got a great understanding of how fortunate God has made us and our family and our chosen professions. Um, I enjoy work. It's got me through tough times. I mentioned the heart deal. Um, I've had other incidents. Everybody's got incidents where they want some help and guidance, and guidance has come to me over the years, and I enjoy life to no end. I'm so fortunate with my kids, my wife, and families. Um, and as you get older, I guess I can say this: you find out what's important in life, and the church has been a big part of my journey. I'm glad I got into the Catholic school, and my mother was great with me before I even got to the Catholic school. And
Yep.
in all the priests I've had over the years, I've had my favorites. I've got one who's now a Monsignor, is just he and I are within 5 days of the same age, and it's nice to have somebody your age understands your generation, and you can talk to like an ordinary person, and really enjoy him.
Hmm.
And that's been a big help, the nuns and so forth. But yeah, and you
And
know, every,
you've had a lot of different roles within the church,
oh
besides
yeah,
being a member. Can you talk about any of those or with the school as well?
school, yeah, um, yeah. Our school was in difficulty and at one time, and this Father Tom came in at the time, was appointed by the bishop to come in and I think help with the school. And we interviewed and got a new principal. It was great. And he was ended up being a friend of mine and a flying buddy, Vernon Carr. But anyway, he got us and sat us down and showed us the steps. And there were several of us farmers that ended up, I don't know if they had a school board, but ended up on the advisory board or something and making decisions on what to do. And anyway, the school got turned around. And it went from, I think, less than 60 kids to now the waiting list type deal. And the school has expanded and flourished. And that's very, very good. And I also had the opportunity to be hand out communion as a Eucharistic minister. And then one of the priests asked me to start doing the readings, I don't know, 30 years ago at Mass. And I think I was the very first reader. And I had not done or been involved with very much public speaking, but it was a good thing for me because it kind of got me over the hump on talking in front of people because I've done it so many years. But I kind of slowed that down. I'll do special occasions as people want, but at my age, it's hard to keep just a perfect schedule of having to be somewhere. But it doesn't bother me to get up and talk in front of them anymore.
Hmm.
So that was a blessing, and
And you're also a trustee as well.
I was a trustee for a while with Joe McClary and I, and they've had good trustees and they've got good ones in there now. So, every organization's got to have people participate, and I got to say our church has a lot of people that will participate and help out at the church. And then you're kind of proud to say you're from ICS church in this area because the school's got such a great reputation and has had a great principal, and so that helps out the whole community. And they love their sports and their sports teams. So hip hip hooray for the ICS Trojans.
Yes, exactly. And I think you also have a lot of friendships too at the church. I remember, we do donuts after mass and you would just talk and get to know people within your parish community, or you would go and back when Mellings was around, if we got up and went to 8 o'clock
Yeah.
church, we would get to go to Mellings with Ed and Kathy Lee and their family as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And of course, a lot of our family, you'd have some family at every mass, no matter which one you went. There was so many relatives at that church, so
Yeah.
it worked out great. But I don't know if there's anything I've forgotten to mention that you'd like, or
Well, I was just going to ask you if you could tell, you mentioned a little bit about your heart surgery in 2013, but could you talk a little bit about what the community did for you while you were in
oh,
the
big thing.
hospital?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I think you referred uh, at one previously earlier. You mentioned it would like to talk about that. Involved in 4-H and some community activities, and served on some smaller boards around here. But yes, in 2013. Um, I hope I don't break up over this because every time I talk about it, it breaks me up. I had kind of emergency surgery and bypass surgery right in the fall at the beginning of harvest. I had the combines ready, everything ready to go. And my dad, who was healthy his whole life, had had issues. And my mom called me at 3:30 or 4 in the morning, says, I'm taking dad to the hospital. He's got issues. And I says, I'll be right up. And I've been treated for some stomach ailments, they thought at the time. It turned out here different. But I started out the back door, and I don't know if you say adrenaline kicked in or what. I couldn't get my breath, and I went to my knees right here on the back porch. I got her on the phone, and I says, Mom, you got to take him yourself. I'll be over shortly. Well, long story short, when my doctor and his doctor got done, I saw my doctor and I says, we got to do something. I'm not right here, and we got to get to the bottom of this. He says, come over in the morning. We'll give you a stress test, and they did. And then I lasted a minute and a half, and then I was on my way to Peoria. And I think just a week later, I had quadruple bypass, and then 3 4 months after that, I had to have 4 stents put in, and but the community outpouring while I was in that hospital came in and they took my crop out, corn and beans, hauled it to the elevator. The elevator shut down and let everybody haul in. And they did my dad's also. And I was in recovery. And a few days later, I believe 12 or 13 days after my surgery, I got to see my dad one last time. I was still in quite a bit of pain, and he wanted home. They brought him home, and he lived 3 hours on a special hospital bed here in the house, and then he passed. He just wanted home. So that was a load that fall. But the community came in and took all our crops out, and I'll be forever grateful to them for what they did. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that's why I try to participate anytime anyone else has an issue like that to return the favor, and this farm community does it. Um, there are no enemies when it comes time to help people in this community. So it's been a good community to be in.
I think
So
that's a perfect way to end the interview is just to talk again about how much we love our small towns and our small communities and how grateful we are and how helpful everyone is when everyone else has any time of need. And it's probably why we love living in Warren County, or you love living in Warren County. I live in my small town in Indiana, but I love to come back and visit.
I was going to say, you love to come home and visit.
Yes. Yes. All right.
So, and I
Any
want to
last?
say that my boys have wonderful wives, and I've got four grandsons, and I'm blessed. So the Gillen name will go on for a while,
Yes.
maybe in Indiana now. So thank you, Amanda.
Well, thank you.